The first and by far the most commonly asked question for a candidate with a disability is on whether you should or you shouldn't disclose your disability before or during the actual interviewing process. And I believe one of the best approach I know is to take into account what the law is actually saying. So the law is saying, in the US at least, that if your disability has a direct impact on your ability to do the job, then you're actually required to disclose it. So I'd rather put it in my CV, so I save everyone's time. Now, in the vast majority of cases, the disability is only marginally involved in your ability to get the job done. And this is, the more interesting scenario. And here I would probably not recommend you to put it in your CV, simply because, the CV screening round is a very competitive process. However, if you feel like it could add you some sort of benefit for going into that role, or if you think that they already know this, so you'd rather put it in your CV, or anyway, that's fine. But as a general recommendation, I would say don't put it in your CV. Now, what about during the actual interview process? And here I believe the question is more interesting, simply because many candidates feel like they cannot perform well if they don't disclose that disability that they have. And if you have even the slightest doubt of being able to perform during the interview, I'd rather be very upfront about this. So at the beginning of the interview, or before answering the first question you're getting asked, I would be quite open-minded about these things. Another strategy would be, to not disclose it, but only disclose it when you feel like you're getting asked a question that would have an impact, in which it would make a difference if you had or if you didn't have that disability. So this would be the main approach I would employ with disclosing my disability. And of course, there's always going to be people who will just prefer to get that out of the way and be open-minded about it from the beginning. You can also do this. I believe you can also do this even before scheduling your phone or your on-site interview, and that's also perfectly fine. The second question I want to clarify here is on whether people with disabilities do actually get good jobs or not. And I'm speaking here from experience, from helping, I know at least a dozen such candidates who are in really well-paid jobs, and that really had a very competitive hiring process. So also Microsoft, as far as I remember, have a quite interesting program for candidates and for employees with disabilities. They are really advanced in these things, so they are doing this for, I don't know, maybe over a decade or so. And also, the marketplace, the environment, the diversity, the promotion of diversity during recent years, I believe it also are to your advantage as a candidate within such a scenario. So yes, I believe, and I know many people who are in such well-paid jobs. Now, what are some interesting tips, especially for candidates with disability? What matters in a job interview, and what will make the difference specifically for your interview? The first and one of the most important pieces of advice I have is to prepare. Like, the better you prepare, not the more you prepare, but the better you prepare for interview, it will show. Now, what do I mean by prepare? That this can differ for the role you're applying for the type of, knowing yourself. I believe you know yourself very well to define what means a preparation for you. And I really strongly believe that the preparation should be tailored to the candidate, to yourself, not, to take a 10-step preparation process and follow that and call it a day. So preparation is something you want to take into account. And also, the hidden reason why preparation matters is that you will build confidence. So confidence is also something you're really going to want to have during a job interview. The second piece of advice here is to get ready to be stress tested. in a job interview. It always happens if there's no stress test in a job interview. Either you didn't understand where the stress test happened, either the interviewer was not really appropriate for the job. And again, I'm talking here about well-paid jobs. Stress tests can be, someone posing more in a more formal way, a bar raiser, or someone, being very relaxed, but asking you those questions that seem to be impossible to answer. And one of the main things they are looking for is how you react to this stress test, and not how you react on the spot on that given moment, but how you react after the stress test has happened. What you don't want to do is, to go on a downwards trend from then on. So if you don't have an answer to that specific question, then you simply get stuck, and the rest of the interview will not be interesting anymore. That's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid also, of course, monumental mistakes, so that's why you want to take your time to answer those questions. But stress tests are something you should expect and to a certain extent embrace during job interviews. Number 3 as advice here is be yourself. Please be yourself. Like if you prepare for the interview, if you kind of know what to expect, if you go through the most commonly asked questions, your personality will add value to your performance during the job interview. And I'm saying here because I know countless cases of people who, try to please excessively, or even try to beg in a job interview, or were too negative in job interviews because they were simply not themselves. Like, it's okay to be shy. It's okay, to take 5 minutes until you get into an interview, and to get in the conversation. But if you start memorizing things, you start templating yourself, and if you put yourself, if you're applying as you would be some other candidate, that will not work all right for you. And the last piece of advice, and also a very important one here, is usually your weakness will be quite clear here, but the interesting part is what's your strength. And some of the best candidates that I talked with really played on their strengths. Like I remember a candidate for a senior software development engineer at AWS who had a visual impairment, and I was coaching him on the behavioral side of the interview, and he was not actually an expert in these behavioral questions. He didn't like them too much, but he was fine, let's say. However, he knew very well that he had that one strength that should make the difference in a job, that main selling point for him during the job interview. That is, when everyone gets stuck, they ask him. So he was the go-to expert for programming related questions. So he knew he was the subject matter expert, and that was his core strength. And everything, everything else was secondary. So this helped him to prioritize the importance of the question that he was getting asked during a job interview. So this will also help you to understand, hey, they're asking me an impossible question, but how important is this question, right? Because if this question has nothing to do with my job, or if it's something that's very small, it probably doesn't matter all that much if I don't have an answer for it. So this is why playing on your strength and selling yourself on your strength is something that the best candidates do, and it is something that usually makes a difference in a job interview. And last but not least, I wanted to give a huge shout out to a couple of my fans on YouTube. In the month of May, I received 40 thank you notes from people who actually got job offers, vast majority at Amazon, but also at Facebook. And I wanted to read a couple of these notes. Stefan will be the first. I want to thank you for all the videos and great content. I went through the whole interviewing process and got a sales executive job at AWS. So yes, this works for sales jobs as well. Then another one would be from Misha, I believe. I don't have enough words to thank you. I've gone through many of them and eventually got an offer for a technical role. So this video being a simple example of a deadly mistake for Amazon. The video with the 2 questions for each leadership principles, which is also quite popular one, which I published, I believe, 3 or 4 months ago, and the one with the preparation checklist. So this is quite a recent one as well, were key for succeeding for the overall process. So again, this was for a technical role. Then I'm also one of the people who got an offer from Amazon last year, and I plan to start working at Amazon soon. The video also helped me to think more logically, and I always watch your YouTube before dreaming my dream. Wow, that's nice to hear. You know, there were also people who shared thank you notes as, you know, in spite of the fact not getting the job, they at least were good on the leadership principles. So I'd also encourage you to share, if at all possible, your experience. So not only, you know, to be featured in my videos, but also to help other candidates in their quests to get good jobs.